Phil Plucker.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what's his name? Phil Plucker.
Yeah. That one was good.
That's kind of weird. Had to get some night roll.
Mhm.
Severe cold night. And
But those were the
we ran out.
Yeah, me
We didn't
too.
have any last night.
if I had been involved, which I wasn't.
Two champions.
Good evening, folks. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order of the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Commission. I'm Andres Ramos, Vice Chair of the Commission. I'm stepping in today for our Chair, Stephanie Duncan, who is not able to join us. This is my first meeting as Vice Chair and first time facilitating the meeting, so please bear with me as I make sure to go through all the motions. So first, we'll go ahead and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Chair Duncan is absent. Vice Chair Ramos.
Present.
Commissioner Manford.
Present.
Commissioner Jansen. Present. Commissioner Jefferson.
Here.
Commissioner Nordstrom.
Present.
Commissioner Nunlin.
Here.
Commissioner Ross. Absent. Commissioner Starks. And Commissioner Wu.
Present.
Here's another form.
Great, we have a quorum. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are not.
Great, thank you. Now we will move to the general public comment section of the agenda. Madam Clerk, would you please read the public comment script?
Persons wishing to address the commission on subjects not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the commission may do so at this time. The commission cannot discuss or take action on matters not on the agenda for this meeting. To speak on an agenda item, please fill out a speaker card and give it to me. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes per item.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any speakers for the general public comment section?
There are not.
All right, then we will move on to the consent items on the agenda. Madam Clerk, will you please read the consent item for you?
All matters listed on consent are to be approved by one motion unless a commissioner or the public requests a separate action is taken on a specific item.
Thank you. Commissioners, is there a motion to approve the consent item?
So moved.
Second.
I think that was a motion by Commissioner Wu, seconded by Commissioner Stark?
No.
Oh, Commissioner Manford. All right. So if there are no objections, we will pass the motion. Are there any objections? All right, hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. We will now move to discussion items. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title of item 2?
2026 One-Year Action Plan Federal Programs Allocation Process Workshop Number 1.
Thank you. We will now receive a presentation from staff.
Oh, excuse me, Chairman. I was going to see if I could make a motion to move the safety and security item to the first item on the agenda, but perhaps I'm too late.
Madam Clerk, would it be appropriate for us to do that? Commissioners, well, first, it sounds like there's a motion. Commissioner Nordstrom would like to make a motion to move agenda item first before item 2. Is there a second for that motion? All right, I heard a second from Commissioner Ross. Is there any debate or discussion? Commissioner Nordstrom, I assume because we have a number of members of the public here, is going to do it first.
Yes, absolutely.
Is there any debate or discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, if there are no objections, we will pass the motion by consent. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. All right. So we'll now move on to instead item 3. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title of item 3?
Safety and security.
And we will now receive a presentation from staff.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Ramos and members of the Commission. My name is Mark Hamilton, and I am the Director of the agency's Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. Previously, I served the agency at multiple levels within the public housing program. I'm here tonight to provide information about past, present, and future security efforts at our Marina Vista and Alder Grove properties. A bit of background on these properties. These are 2 of our largest public housing communities with a combined count of 800 units on 2 approximately 30-acre lots. They are located in the Upper Band Park neighborhood off of Broadway. Over the years, the agency has pursued different paths to providing security and security-related services at these properties. One thing that has remained consistently in place at these communities is a third-party security service, which is paid through both properties' operating budgets. Currently, there is a patrol guard service, and they serve between the hours of 6 p.m. and 6 a.m., with additional hours being provided on holidays and during agency closures. Property managers and staff at these sites also interact with the problem-oriented police or POP officer assigned to the area. We also have the largest camera network in our inventory in place in Marina Vista. This 41 camera network was only possible through a safety and security grant from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We worked with the police department with the application for these funds, with the police providing a crime prevention through environmental design or SEP type report, justifying the need for cameras at this community. These cameras have been in place since May of 2023. In addition, our resident services team works to provide local resources to families in order to help promote self-sufficiency. These connections to family education, youth programs, and other organizations help to foster and develop positive community development. The agency also works hand in hand with our resident advisory board. They act as our tenant advocates. During the time prior to COVID, regular safety meetings were held at these communities to discuss safety and security concerns. And the RAB was an excellent advocate in connection to our residents at both communities. We are currently working to have these community meetings resume, with the hope that our residents, school, and neighbors can help provide solutions or suggestions to address these community concerns. The agency is currently working on a multi-housing authority agency joinder contract to install fixed cameras with license plate reader technology at the Alder Grove campus. Drones are being explored as another potential option. Back in 2018, we did explore and utilize drones in conjunction with vehicle patrols. While expensive, this program was effective and one of the first of its kind. The program did have mixed reactions with our residents and neighbors, which eventually led to the program being discontinued. There may be a change in reception and cost as the technology has improved and has become more commonplace. That concludes our presentation. Happy to answer any of your questions or concerns.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners?
Well, I was just going to say not yet.
Oh, not yet.
Yeah.
Do we want to take a public comment first?
Yeah, let's do that.
Perfect. Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, are there any public comments on this item?
There are many. First, we have John Morales. You can come up to the dais and you have 3 minutes.
My name is John Frias Morales, and I'm deeply concerned about the escalating violence and the tragic loss of life at Marina Vista and Elder Grove apartments. The residents of these public housing communities deserve to live in safety and peace. The frequency of shootings and murders is unacceptable, and the immediate action is required to protect the lives of these vulnerable residents. I strongly support the increased security measures at both locations, including the use of security cameras, the presence of trained security guards, and the implementation of a problem-oriented policing program. The potential use of security drones should also be explored. These measures are not merely suggestions, they are necessities. The statistics are heartbreaking. Marina Vista Apartments, January 23rd, Frederick Williams was shot and killed near Ringgold.
Yes.
January 7th, 2 people, including a 17-year-old boy, were shot in CV Circle. June 23rd, 2024, Denai Partridge was murdered on 5th Street. July 2nd, 2024, an 8-year-old girl was shot and critically wounded at Kit Carson Street. November 16, 2021, a 7-year-old Isabel Martin was murdered on 5th Street. October 19, 2020, a man was shot at CB Circle. Alder Grove Apartments. January 23, 2025, Frederick Williams was murdered on Ringgold. November 3, 2024, Deshaun Walker was murdered at Kit Carson. July 2nd, 2024, an 8-year-old girl was shot at Revere. September 15, 2023, a man was murdered on Kit Carson. September 18, 2023, 2 women were shot at Kit Carson. These incidents demonstrate a clear present danger to the residents of Marina Vista and Alder Grove. We must prioritize the safety of these communities and implement effective security measures to prevent further tragedies. The lives of low-income residents are just as valuable as any other, and they deserve to live without fear of gun violence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other speakers?
Next, we have Brooke Miller Jacobs.
Good afternoon. I'd like to first say thank you for putting safety and security on the agenda today. And thank you for providing the staff report and for your time this afternoon. According to the Housing Authority of the City of Sacramento 2024 Admissions and Continued Occupancy Policy, ACOP document, this is the same document that's referenced in the staff report. On page 36, it states, a federally assisted housing is intended to provide a place for residents to live and raise families, not a place to commit crime, to use or sell drugs, or to threaten, intimidate, harm, or terrorize neighbors. It is the intent of the Housing Authority of the County of Sacramento to fully endorse and implement a policy designed to help create and maintain a safe, crime and drug-free community and protect program participants against threats to their personal and family safety. Boom, that's huge. That's your job. But this is not happening. This is not happening at Alder Grove. This is not happening at Marina Vista, and it's spilling over into the other neighborhoods. Crime appears to be getting worse. What is being done to help create this safe, crime and drug-free community that's spoken there? To protect program participants against threats to their person and their family. There needs to be full transparency. This information needs to be shared publicly. What have SHRA done, and what is the policy for when a shooting happens on the property? What happens the next day? What have you done to remove tenants or visitors when the crimes have been committed? What kind of enforcement happens after a violent crime or shooting? There needs to be full transparency. We, as your neighbors, respectfully request that this information be shared publicly. How much money has SHRA requested, received, or invested in crime and safety measures at Marina Vista and Alder Grove in the past? I ask that because we just listened to a gentleman talk about, money for this and money for that. Because so far, what you've done in 2010, 2018, and 2023 is not sufficient and it's not enough. SHRA, funded by the city, county, and HUD, needs to work with Sacramento Police Department, another city agency, to reduce crime hand in hand. It's vital that they work together. I would like to request that the Sacramento Police Department conduct a crime prevention or safety assessment report that will reduce crime and shootings at Alder Grove and Marina Vista. This report needs to be made public and transparent. A taxpayer-funded public housing project should be the safest place to live because the city and our governments are responsible for keeping the tenants safe, but this is the least safest place to live. As a taxpayer, we demand these neighborhoods be safe. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Karen Corbs.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Karen Corbs, and I previously spoke at the January 15th meeting regarding the Sacramento Police Department's Public Safety Camera Network. It is encouraging to see that safety and security has been added to tonight's agenda. Thank you very much. Thank you for recognizing the importance of this issue and for fostering a proactive discussion. However, I am surprised that the Sacramento Police Department was not formally invited to participate. Their presence would be helpful in addressing any potential discrepancies in information from SHRA's perspective. Right now, it's just a one-sided conversation. Also, I'm glad I had an opportunity to review your staff report. You mentioned, I believe it was Mr. Hamilton, mentioned that there's a Sacramento pop team for Marina Vista and Alder Grove. Do you know that this team has not existed since 2010?
So pop-ups.
And thank you for clarifying about the patrol guard services that work between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. What do the patrol guards do if there's a crime taking place? Do they reach out to the police department? We don't know. If I'm reading the staff report correctly, to improve safety and security, the current proposal includes drones, mobile camera pods, and cameras with license plate readers, totaling approximately $115,000 a year. However, just last month, while I was here at this meeting, $25 million was approved to refurbish approximately 59 units at a motel at a cost of $459,000 per unit. I'm really trying to gain a clearer understanding of the priorities and decision-making process regarding these expenditures, but I'm really having a hard time. Currently, residents do not feel safe. We see posts on social media how they are afraid to live in this area because of the shootings. The public safety camera network that uses real-time footage that ties directly into the police department would be a good use of resources. Now take a moment to imagine this. It's just another night in Upperland Park. You turn on the police scanner because you hear sirens in the distance. And what do you hear? Officers being dispatched to chase stolen cars speeding down Broadway to CV Circle, gunshots echoing near Kit Carson, groups of young men roaming around Revere Street, some carrying AR-15s. And what can the police do? They show up, they write a report. If the residents are willing to talk, that's an added perk. But here's the real kicker. If officers need camera footage to solve these crimes, they can't access it.
Yeah.
They need a judge's signature, a subpoena, or a warrant, a process that can take hours, days, even weeks. Meanwhile, criminals walk free, and the violence continues. This is the reality, and this is unacceptable. My message tonight remains clear and urgent. SHRA must take immediate and decisive action to improve the safety and security of Marina Vista and Alder Grove. Residents deserve to live in a community that is safe, free from crime, and protected from the devastating impact of drugs. This is not a request. This is a necessity, and I think you guys all understand that. The well-being of the families who call these communities home depends on it. Thank you very much.
Christina Rogers.
Good evening. After I reviewed page 36 of the 2024 ACOP document, that Ms. Miller Jacobs just read, I was floored. How could any of the SHRA staff or committee not know this verbatim? Watching the video at the end of the last meeting I attended, much of what I heard were excuses about reviewing legal parameters and being sensitive to certain concerns. I find that weak. I heard nothing as straightforward as that paragraph that I read. It basically states public safety is a key responsibility of the SHRA, and SHRA leadership has gloriously failed at the Marina Vista Alder Grove sites. As you probably know, a key pillar of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is safety. You can't even provide services to unpack and address trauma until a person feels safe in their environment. I hear much about the school to prison pipeline, and I'm sure you have been educated about why this is. Yet Alder Grove Marina Vista is the perfect example of setting these kids up to fail. If your housing looks like a cell block, it's infested with rats and roaches. The plumbing and electrical is over 60 years old. If shootings, drug sales, and intimidation are the norm, why would a child expect to live any differently? SHRA's failure has far-reaching effects on the very children they are responsible for housing. SHRA has failed on this. Until there are no more news reports going across my TV screen talking about another shooting at Alder Grove or the death of a child there, public safety is your priority. I reviewed the safety and security report turned in by Ms. Dozier for tonight. You should have a lot of questions about it. For instance, what does create a sense of security on the site mean? Was the shooting of a child because people didn't feel safe? Do you think a few posters and workshops will fix it? Do you think just reviewing policy and legalities and posting them on a wall will be the end of it? Is the delusion that deep? I'm here on my dime and my time, and no one is paying me to be here or participate. Your education and expertise has prepared you to find real solutions to this deadly issue. You really shouldn't have to do any outreach in public education to know what will work to stop the crime at the SHRA site. And with the money I've seen being approved by this committee, I know there are funds to support safety and security measures that work. Criminals need a very clear message, full stop. SHRA priorities are not the place to gangbang. It is not the place to keep illegal firearms. If you think anyone at an SHRA property will hide you after committing a crime, you are wrong. In fact, if a resident harbors a criminal on any SHRA site, there will be consequences. And those consequences will be enforced. As Ms. Dozier explained in the last meeting, residents are responsible for the behavior of their guests. All talk and no action is what you got here. Enforce what got you here. Enforcement of your own rules must be 100% solid. SHRA will not allow their residents to suffer trauma, pain, and death due to failed property management. No more SHRA residents should die on your site. No more children traumatized. Review page 36 of the ACOP. Your priorities are clear. Get to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Aaron Zeff.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Aaron Zeff. I'm the CEO of Community. I'm the CEO of Community Oriented Patrol and Security. We're the first public benefit security corporation in the state of California. We have two options when we deal with people in our community, which is help them through 211 or other community services, or then affect the law enforcement chain. I applaud your organization for taking up the security modernization. Security modernization is something that the city of Sacramento is currently going through. And again, Ms. Corbs mentioned that PD wasn't here today. I'd highly recommend that you coordinate whoever the point of contact is with Sergeant Pullen of the Sacramento Police Department. He handles their real-time crime center and their integration with FUSIS. This is a couple $100,000 a year endeavor that the Sacramento Police Department has engaged. I'll give you one anecdotal comment. The Secretary of Defense, from whatever administration you want to go back to, anytime there's an emergency, ask one question: where is the aircraft carrier? And that's the biggest question: where is the aircraft carrier? The Sacramento Police Department, if you listen to the scanner, because it sounds like some of the folks in the room listen to the scanner, every time you hear an incident occur on the police scanner, they ask, is the real-time crime center operational, and who has LPR? LPR stands for license plate recognition. Those are the two most important things. I've never heard in all my years in law enforcement as well as security anyone ask for, where's the on-site security officer? Because typically the on-site security officer is in his car, asleep in his office, not affecting proactive law enforcement. I recommend that you continue your efforts. I see you've put together a list of financial considerations. I would not support tonight approving any of those, just because the detail behind those categories are very thin. And I think the City of Sacramento or other experienced professionals would be happy to work with SHRA to facilitate the best practices. In September, I led a delegation of SAC PD, the PBID, which is Tower Broadway, which I do security for as well, down to Los Angeles to the best practices, which happen to be in Beverly Hills of all places. They run a real-time crime center. They operate drones. They have a camera network of 2,400 cameras in the city of Beverly Hills. It's renowned throughout the United States as the gold standard when it comes to public safety. I would encourage your organization to also send your chief of security, whoever that is, or the persons involved, and I'm happy to provide contacts in that police department in Beverly Hills. They'd be happy to entertain and show you what they do to ensure public safety. Good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Marjorie Smith.
Hello, and it's Marjorie Smith. It's okay. Hello, my name is Marjorie Smith. I live in Alder Grove. I've lived there for 8 years now. And we've been talking about the same situation for maybe 15, 20 years. And it seems like time and time again, we stand up here and we beg you guys to do something that you should have done decades of work to ensure the safety of the children, of the communities, of the minorities. I have two men that I'm raising at home, a 13-month-old and a 5-year-old. And we do not, we cannot play comfortably in our community. We cannot go to the community center where there's somewhere for our kids to play. They have a community room that we're not even able to use. We can't. There's nothing there for them to do. There's no after-school programs. There's Ball Out Academy by the grace of God, but they don't even allow them on the campus. They have to go to health professions to provide basketball training for children. That should be something that they should just open the doors for. There should be a brand new basketball court that should be available for children. There should be dance. There should be writing. There should be reading. There should be all these different things that would prevent all of this danger in our facade, in our environment. And putting cameras in there for police to monitor and watch, in a way, will be okay. But we also have to monitor and watch that, because we know what that also can cause. Violations, coming into people's play. Oh, it looks like something is going on in your house, so we want to come rushing in, and we want to see what you're doing. We want to see what's going on. So if this is not an environment where we all can sit down, like, and it not be in these buildings, because coming here, who can come here? Who can park? I'm at edge of getting a ticket because I wanted to come here to make sure that you guys heard that there are multiple things that need to be done. These people are sitting here making millions of dollars, making hundreds of thousands of dollars, sitting in their pretty little offices, doing wonderful, doing great, while we're suffering. But I have mold that I've been asking to be cleaned since I've been talking to him about it. Years ago, I still haven't got anything cloned, but if I'm late on my rent, one bit, I get a 3-day notice. But I'm living with nasty rats that are running in my home. I'm living in these conditions to where things are not being taken care of, but we want to talk about safety. Like I stated before, we need more programs. Mr. Kenneth started Ball Out Academy, which has saved so many children's lives. We need programs like his, like this, to come into the community to help us, not just talking about money. We need action. We need work. We need things to be done to save the children, so no more children are dying.
Thank you, Marcia.
Aurora Trout.
Good afternoon. My name is Aurora Prout. I am a certified public health nurse, and I live in the community next door to CD Circle. I want to remind the Commission that violence is a problem of a result of social determinants of health being ignored. Social determinants of health that are prevalent in this neighborhood are racial disparities, inequality, poverty, inadequate housing, as demonstrated by the previous speaker, and education. I would encourage the Commission to utilize a public health approach when addressing violence in these communities. A quick lesson in public health: there are 3 levels of prevention: tertiary, secondary, and primary. Primary is prevention. Primary is developing programs that interact with the communities for them to feel safe through being a community. Tertiary response is the 3rd level. You're reacting to a problem that's already existing. It's putting in those cameras, it's putting in security guards. You're not responding to the problem you're not intervening at the correct level when you're getting to tertiary. We need to address the problems in this community to address the violence. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Margo Felix.
Okay, I'm here because of the violence. I hate to say this, but I'm an ex-gang member. I know how the violent and how the gang members play. If you allow me to be in those apartments and sell drugs, kill people, carry guns and do that, I'm gonna keep doing it because you guys allow it. Now, if you guys put security and they don't let me in there, I'm never gonna come back there, you know? Yeah, I got 2 kids that I'm raising, and I'm trying to raise them the right way, you know, and I live right down the street from that apartment. Since I'm 55 years old, and since I've been a teenager, I went to McCutcheon High School, to Cal. Those apartments been the same way since then. That's since 88, 86, 87, they have not changed. There's something that has to be done. Our kids are the future. They need to be going to school, having programs. You know, I take my kids to Ball Out Academy because that's the only place I allow them to go and be by themselves because I know the staff there takes care of my kids. I feel safe there. But I won't let them walk down the street. I don't let them go down the store. I don't let them go to their neighbor apartments, none of that because of the violence. There's something that has to be done in that neighborhood with the violence. Even if you guys put retired cops, a substation in the apartments, protecting the young, more programs, education programs, after school programs, courtesy time that kids can't be out after a certain time, gotta be in the house, you know? I mean, we have to do something, you know? I'm one of the lucky ones that survived, and I'm alive now, but most of my friends that lived there or that were around me are dead or in prison for the rest of their life. I don't feel that the neighborhood should go through that at all, you know? Yeah, I regret what I did, but I changed my life. I have to be there for my kids and protect my kids the best way I can. And that's what we need your guys' help to help us protect our kids. We can't do it on our own, you know. We can't put nobody in jail. We can't do investigation. There gotta be something that has to be done for the young teenagers, the young kids, the young women, even for adults. You got innocent people getting shot. Bullets don't got names. You know, bullet goes any which way and it hits innocent people. It shouldn't be that no more, you know. These apartments are bad. They need to do something about the apartments. Thank you.
I apologize, I'm having a really hard time reading this, but it looks like the last name's Duncan. Quinones, maybe?
No, you're right.
Okay.
Sorry for my handwriting. I'm Kenneth Duncan. I'm the CEO of Ball Out Academy. And I've actually been in the community for like 12, 13 years. I was a Boys and Girls Club director starting in 2012. We got our first grant through the city after a 3-year-old girl was shot in the head. And we had a community meeting just like this. We talked about the same issues that's been going on in Katy, Venezuela. I wrote a proposal. We got funded last year to run some programs in Marina Vista and Alder Grove. I have a parent group, a parent leadership group, and we get about 20 to 30 parents that come out once or twice a month. We're leaning to doing twice a month because we're the probably only active nonprofit in CV Circle in New Hyvetia who works with the kids and parents. Kids are dying left and right. And I get a call, Kenneth, can you do another program after a kid gets killed? Prevention is the answer. We have to continue to have daily programs and have preventative measures to help reduce the violence. Intervention is the last resort, and that's what we're doing now. We're putting Band-Aids on deep wounds that have been happening for decades. These apartments are the oldest public housing apartments in Northern California. It's been going on. This isn't new, but all we talk about is the negative. We try to have positive things happening, but the negative is overshadowing, and we're definitely in the community 2 to 3 times a week during hours where violence is happening. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I run a program called Hoop Sessions, and it's mentoring through sports. I play college basketball, and I use that as a vehicle to help me get my degree in psychology. And now I'm helping the youth, learn different skills and life skills through the sport of basketball. But we're not really getting support from the city. We're pretty self-sufficient right now. But we have kids dying left and right. And like I said, we only get a call when a kid dies. We're doing Black History. We have an event actually next Wednesday. Our parent group is called Parent Link Up. And the parents who came out are advocates for this community. And what's frustrating is I started Parent Link Up to be directly in the public housing. and it was from 6 to 8 on the third Wednesday evening of the month. And SHRA did not let us continue in the public housing space. So we luckily have a relationship with Leotata Floyd, the principal, Sam Floyd, and he's let us house our program at the school site, which is fine. The school site is a safe space, but not everybody attends that school. Not everybody's comfortable going to meetings at the school, so we wanted it to be directly in the neighborhood. I was working with Julius in the past. Julius helped us with the first one, but we got an email right after our first event that we could no longer host our program in SHRA. And I voiced all these same things after that 3-year-old baby girl was shot in the head. Like my brother Felix said, bullets have no names. It was an altercation. Drunk uncle tried to shoot at somebody and it shot the 3-year-old girl in the head. We were part of the crisis response. I put the family in hotels. We connect the family to mental health support. And that's what we do with pretty much all the shootings that happen in Marina Vista. Danny Partridge, last summer, 18-year-old kid, just graduated from Saba, was planning on going to a HBCU. He was gunshot 7 times in the neighborhood, not a gang member, just a kid who just celebrated his birthday. And we supported that family during that time. So we need support to continue giving the support, and there needs to be more programs like Ball Out Academy, which not necessarily can happen, right? If you don't have a relationship in this community, it's gonna be hard for you just to, let's go to Marina Vista and run a football camp. You don't know anybody. I know all the families in Marina Vista. I'm usually one of the first calls that happen after there's a death in the community. But we got kids at HBCUs, I got kids in college, and people say, there's only thugs and gangsters in Marina Vista. But we do have a lot of success stories. And those are overshadowed by this type of stuff. The Mill. There's a brand new housing development surrounding CV Circle, which obviously came years later. So my students panhandle through there. They want to go swimming. The Southside pool is closed. So our kids go to the Mill, which is a beautiful space. If I was a kid, I'd do the same thing. So I actually drive through there when I'm visiting friends and try to make sure my kids aren't getting harassed by adults because they don't want them at the pool. These are Black kids, they stand out. And they're treated as if they're grown men and chased out of the pool where security's threatening them. Police putting kids in the back of cop cars. And they're treating our kids like criminals when half of our kids are trying to rake grass or rake leaves and just take the trash out because they're from the ghetto.
So,
and you're surrounded by wealth.
Yeah, past time, if I can ask you to wrap up your comments, please.
Yeah, no problem. Kenneth Duncan, Ball Out Academy.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Adita Gomes.
No. Good afternoon, evening. My name is Adita Gomes. I am program officer for Black Child Legacy Campaign, but also a neighbor. I actually live down the street at the apartments that we're talking about. And so I think today what I'd like to convey is the humanity, right, that is being missed with the folks who live in Alder Grove and Marina Vista. I have the honor with Black Child Legacy Campaign to serve this area that seems isolated of resources. I think that we have to ask a deeper question. What is happening, right, in this space that is so drastic to what is happening a block down the street, right? There's a desert. Folks do not have resources. There is no investment. And so when we think about how do we fix the problem, I think we need to think about what is the root to that problem? What is causing the environment for guns to be so present, right? Do people feel unsafe that they have to protect themselves? And so I think for me, the question that I lift for this body is how can we be better neighbors? How can we be better citizens and taxpayers and realize that these are our neighbors, these are our brothers, these are children who are really wanting a chance at life. There should be no reason why Black children die at 2 times the rate. There should be no reason why we invest in some neighborhoods, but don't invest in others. And so I think we have to just be honest with what is really the cause and what is our role. I want to speak to what Kenneth just mentioned about SHRA and the actual community not feeling like they can have resources on their site. Most of these folks do not have transportation. They don't have the resources to be able to go beyond their confines. And so we built in some things, right? I remember there used to be workforce development on site. That's no longer there. I mean, I could be wrong. There were other organizations that came to supplement the need. They are no longer there. I think we have to be sober and intentional about where we put our money. And if our Black children truly matter, like the other children, right? Brown children, there are, folks that are not Black in that area, then how come are we not investing the appropriate dollars to be able to allow them a chance? I don't think that we're asking for folks to be given a freeway. We're just saying, should they have an equal chance like the others who do 2 streets down the road? And so I beg us to think about this issue in a more creative way, not punishing the folks that are the victims, right? I don't believe that not having enough resources is a crime. We need to think about why do some of our neighbors, why do some have the resources and others don't. So thank you for your time and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
There are no more comments.
Thank you. So at this point, we will now turn it over to the commission. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Amanpour.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for all you've said. It's really difficult to find a way to respond to some of these things. But I do have some questions, so hopefully it may be able to illustrate in regards to I'm not even gonna speak for anyone, but what I can actually do in regards to this. So the first question is, in regards to SHRA, I would like maybe Michelle or Mark to provide what SHRA is in regards of it being a joint powers agency.
So SHRA is a JPA that was formed in 1982 by the city of Sacramento and the county of Sacramento. And they wanted to consolidate all of the housing functions within one entity. So there's the public housing, which we own and operate from everywhere from Orangeville to Walnut Grove. There is our Section 8 program, the Housing Choice Voucher, with over 13,000 families who participate in that program. There is also our Housing Finance Department. Our Housing Finance Department helped to provide gap financing to developers to create affordable housing units throughout the city and county. We created over 29,000 units in that regards. So, I mean, the short answer is that those are all of those responsibilities that SHRA is responsible for.
And in regards to our role as commissioners, we typically review a lot of housing development that's impacting the city itself, city and countywide itself. And when we do make certain votes or recommendation for new developments or things that would impact the community, those votes essentially go to our county supervisors.
Correct.
And also our city council members who provide the final decision in regards to anything that we do make. So essentially, any decision that we tend to make here is elevated to our city council members and county supervisors who ultimately make the final decision in regards to resources, housing development, and all of those things that many of you may have been sharing all throughout this meeting, correct?
Correct. There are certain things that are totally within the purview of the commission. And then there are other things where the commission does act in an advisory capacity that move on to both the either the county board of supervisors or the city council. For instance, the administrative plan and the ACOP those are things that are the purview of the commission, and they stop here. They don't go on to the city council or the board of supervisors. And I'm sure there's other things as well, but that's just an example.
Okay, so in regards to a lot of the crimes that are happening, I think a few people provided their background in regards to the public health perspective. And from my background, when it comes to public health, yes, definitely there's a great correlation regarding crime and increasing crime, particularly when it comes to increase of unemployment and public resources. And so with that, I just want to ensure that I know we had a nurse practitioner, a nurse public health person who came and provided that feedback, but I also want to add on to it also has an impact when it comes to unemployment and also those resources and also historic systemic racism regarding America's history, quite frankly. And so when you see a lot of neighborhoods that are hugely impacted when it comes to crime, just keep those things in mind. I did want to share that in regards to everything that everyone has shared as a community member, I definitely would want to find out what we can do to resolve these type of things. I definitely personally would reach out to my city council leaders. I'm not too certain who's a city council member within this area. Is it
Dickinson?
Bill
Pluckyball. Okay. And then we also have the county supervisor, which I do believe is Phil Cerner.
Yes.
Okay. And so those are the two people that I definitely would probably reach out, and also reach out to our county sheriff and our police department. But I do believe that, you know, in regards to our police departments, in regards to their role and our county sheriffs, the city council approved $228 million to provide our police department those resources for them to be able to do a lot of the things that we would love them to see, and in addition to their current funds. Even the county board of supervisors also gave the sheriff's department additional $3.7 million from their $681 million to provide a lot of these resources. So when we talk about the funding part, to be able to do a lot of these things, the money does exist, but the people who are the gateholders of those fundings, I think there needs to be thorough discussions with those individuals, especially if we are those constituents who vote for their leadership. And also I want to say that there's a fine line in regards to some of the statements saying that, you know, why is it that, you know, that we can't do certain things regarding limiting certain people from doing certain things in some of these communities or some of these housing. There's a fine line where it can definitely be perceived as discriminatory. So I just want to make sure that we are aware of that. If we want to limit access to certain people from having certain rights, then there's a possibility of it seeming discriminatory. So that's all I wanted to say for now. I will definitely move on to our commissioners to see if they have any other feedback.
Thank you, Commissioner Amanpour. Are there any other commissioners who have questions or comments? Or Jefferson?
Yes, I was just wondering about the POP program, and there was a mention of the last interaction that they had with the community. Do we know when the last interaction was?
Yeah, so the POP program that was being referred to in the public comments, that is a completely different program than what is currently in place. There are POP officers still. They're more limited in number than they were in the past. But they do engage with our management and our staff at our sites to talk about the different things that are happening and for there to be mutual benefit between the two parties to help resolve crimes that happen within the community or security concerns that kind of come in.
And then another question I had was,
You allowed to respond?
what type of funds and grants are available for security and safety measures that we can apply for?
Yeah, so we've been regularly applying through the Department of Housing and Urban Development for their emergency safety and security grants. We have been trying, or we tried for Marina Vista, like pre-2017 applying, and we finally got the grant, I believe in 2021. And so we were able to plan, build, and implement the camera system that we have at Marina Vista, utilizing those funds. And we're always on the lookout for additional funding opportunities or partnerships that we can have in order to enhance the security and safety in the communities.
Okay, and my last question was, the real-time cameras that were mentioned, is that something that we're concerned about in terms of privacy on the property for our residents?
Yeah, this is Brad Nakano, General Counsel. Yeah, so with respect to real time, there is a federal Privacy Act concern. We are limited in what type of identifiable information we can just hand out. And so we follow the guidelines and the laws that are expected of us as one of the operators of a federal housing program. And so, just to be clear, the requirements are pursuant to the law are judge-signed court orders or judge-signed warrants or judge-signed subpoenas with respect to law enforcement action. And so, as soon as we receive those from law enforcement, we do act immediately. There have been situations in the past where we've received warrants late at night, 11 p.m., 12 a.m., and which we handle accordingly and promptly. So I just wanted to make that clear as well.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. Are there further comments or questions from commissioners?
I have some, but you have quite a bit of notes too, so I could wait till after you're done.
No, go ahead, Commissioner Ross.
You sure? All right. Well, my questions, I have a few questions, and I'll ask those, but it has some things to do with programming at sites and then also ad hoc safety committee and so forth. So there's my background and experience and so forth is one of the gentlemen mentioned earlier. So one of the persons mentioned, which maybe several, that talked about there's intervention programs, there's prevention programs. And then a lot of that, we're usually talking about activities for kids, activities and so forth that are proactive for parents. Those are huge, right? So we're talking about jobs, employment opportunities, activities for kids that are enriching and so forth. So my question would be, there was some discussion about programs not being allowed to take place at our sites. I don't know. And then why, or maybe there's a reason for that. And I think the public might want to know about that. Yes. But also, what types of programming do we offer at? Maybe the public is not aware of those also. So my questions are, what programming is offered at our public housing sites, Marina Vista and Alder Grove? And then we'll start with that question. And then the number two would be, are there ad hoc safety committees to address some of these concerns? I know they've been talked about for a long time. I haven't been on this commission that long, but that might be that the citizens could get involved. I know we have resident committees that take place, but is there something that is addressing safety? So I'll start there. And what do we offer? And is there a reason that things were not allowed? And safety.
Yeah. So we did mention in the staff report as well as in the presentation that we do have a resident services team, and they really act as a conduit to connect residents to other external resources that exist within the community. And that can be things like financial education, family support, and things of that nature. I know that in the past that we have held like different events at that community and have engaged with community partners. And I think we're looking to get back on track with that. As we all know that we just came through a pandemic, and we're happy to kind of explore these opportunities to partner with these neighborhood organizations. There is some scrutiny when it comes to the community partners that are able to operate on site. There is some contractual language that is required to be met as far as like indemnity and having the proper insurance and things like that. And then we're also looking at programs that, potentially are long-term. In the properties past, we've had programs that were, somewhat fly-by-night, where the residents would engage and be engaged, and then all of a sudden, like, the funding would drop out for those different organizations. But we're happy to explore partnerships and opportunities with these other organizations. I don't have the details on why some of these things were approved. I'm kind of filling in tonight for this part of the presentation, but we're happy to kind of take a look at that and see what happens.
Okay.
Just to also follow up on that, we will definitely follow up and take a look into the item that came about in terms of being in the space at SHRA, so we'll look into that. In addition to that, our resident services do outreach in the community to our FSS program, Financial Sufficiency. I think you remember, you've seen residents who have gone through that program where they develop what the over a 5-year time frame, and then graduate with resources that help them move on and achieve their goals. Sometimes it's home ownership, other times it could be just having a dependable car. So the FSS program, we continue to do outreach for that program. And then I know just off the top of my head, I don't know, is Julius here? Not here. Julius is our resident services manager, but they also do a diaper distribution program where they provide free diapers for all of our residents every single week. And then connecting residents, as Mark was saying, to other resources outside of the community, other nonprofit organizations that provide sometimes additional food to help supplement their food, and also the self-sufficiency is the one that I know our staff spends a lot of time with our residents on those. Could we be doing more? Absolutely. Would we like to do more? Absolutely. As a result of COVID, a lot of the things that we had going on were literally just shut down.
5 years ago.
And so now, I know people say, well, COVID's been over, we're still grappling with the after effects of that in terms of the number of people who are new to the community and have come in, and those who have left the community. So we want to continue to engage and to ensure that we can get back to a level of robust services. But the only way we can do that is through partnerships. And working with other organizations in the community that can provide assistance, and we can be able to do that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that was one of the reasons that I asked that question. It often comes up. I do a lot in marketing and awareness, and sometimes people just don't know. I mean, one of the other situations is we were talking, and I'm not disparaging any remarks that anyone was making, but there's a huge mandate that SHRA has to increase housing because there's a lot of folks that don't have housing. But then what I'm also hearing from folks that are in existing housing, they're saying, well, what about us? What about safety programs and so forth? So I appreciate this report. What I would like to see, at least on what I would like as a recommendation, is number one, is I would, if there isn't one that exists, let me know if there is or isn't one, but that there's an ad hoc safety committee that's put together to help address some of the concerns. With that, we got intervention, we have prevention, and then there's also some reality checks on what kind of resources and funding that's available. I would like, as a follow-up for us to just, and for the public awareness, to be able to say, hey, just to reiterate, here's the program that we have to offer. What ideas, and with this ad hoc committee, maybe there's some other ideas, maybe there's some shifting of attention and focus for a certain period of time that may be able to help just bring awareness to the population of what is available. The FSS program is amazing. There's not a high enrollment with that. Maybe there needs to be more attention to focus on that. I mean, that's, in, workforce development program, there's 2 of them, but that's one particular one that SHRA has to offer. So maybe we can have a follow-up report on the available programming at the site, what may or may not have been removed as Executive Director of the show, those were mentioned, and maybe an ad hoc safety team can be put together. A little bit more attention to these concerns, because they've been there, and maybe we're doing enough, maybe we need to do more. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ross. Commissioner Nordstrom.
I just want to say I'm a new representative, a resident representative to this commission, so I can relate to a lot of the concerns in the audience here. I want to thank everybody who came out to share how they feel and to speak publicly. It's not easy, sometimes even to get here, and like you say, they couldn't even find a place to park, that one woman said. So we really appreciate the efforts to come out here. Since I'm new on this commission, I'm fairly new to, brand new to how everything works. I know this can be challenging for people to understand all the hoops and things that need to be jumped through, and how many people are involved in the decision making, and that your concerns are so immediate and so deep and so profound that to be told, well, we'll look into it, can be really frustrating and difficult to deal with. So, I get it. I do want to share that as a person who grew up in Chicago, right in the heart of Chicago, right next to what we used to call the projects, having programs for the youth, for the kids, was vital to keeping them engaged and forming communities and being part. I know in my case there was dance and gymnastics and swimming, and I did so many things I couldn't pick, but it kept me very busy and kept me away from being on the street and being engaged in things I shouldn't. So I would really hope that there's some way those kinds of programs or involvement or resources are available to these families that are in these very large communities like that, to keep the kids, to keep them busy and joyful and active. So again, thanks so much. I'm hoping that an ad hoc committee can continue to look into this, because I empathize and really, really understand your concerns. And hopefully these things will be addressed and things will get better for you. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Nordstrom. And just for myself to make some comments, just to echo the commissioners' thanks for the members of the public. Just thank you all for taking the time to be here and to share your comments. We usually don't get this much attendance at these meetings, so it's great to see the public here and speaking up. As Commissioner Emenfor said, it's a little complicated given that there's different players at stake here. This is a JPA, so it's city and county, but we're ultimately, for the most part, usually not the deciding body. We're an advisory body in most respects, and it's the city and the county that decide. Which isn't to say don't come here, absolutely come here, but also reach out to your city representatives or your county representatives, because that is technically how SHRA is governed, but also there's a lot of different intersections here, like mentioned with SACP and potentially other agencies. So our ability to do something is maybe in some respects limited, but even just being here to hear you all and to understand what the issues are is really important. And so you being here is an important first step. And so I have to admit that I'm not sure what all the solutions are. I think a lot of great comments were brought up tonight. And I think part of the challenge is that a lot of the focus is how to react to what's already happening in terms of let's have cameras or drones or license plate readers or put up fencing. Those all seem like Band-Aids, right? And I think as folks mentioned, there is sort of a social determinants of public health aspect to this. There is the need for prevention, the need for it to not have the issue in the first place. But that's a larger, broader social question that is beyond the scope of SHRA and certainly beyond the ability of our funds, given the the important work that we have to do with regard to housing programs generally, and the fact that we've already had challenges for a variety of reasons. And so that isn't to say that we turn you away and say, well, too bad, but it's, I think, more to contextualize sort of what we can do and trying to find a path forward within those limits. So I appreciate what my fellow commissioners have suggested around an ad hoc committee. So maybe we can explore what that could look like. And so there has been some talk about connecting with SAC PD, and there had been a request to either bring SAC PD here or have a conversation. And I think there was something about a public safety assessment. Maybe that's something that an ad hoc committee can explore or can sort of follow up on in terms of what potential other partnerships there are. And I'll just say from a personal standpoint, I see you, I hear you, and I do care just from a personal standpoint because my family used to live in public housing here. It was my first home in Sacramento when I was born. Not for a very long time that I lived there, but it was my first home in Sacramento. And so we have residents currently on here, and we have other folks, we're all, this is Citizen Oversight Commission, right? And so we're here bringing our lived experience, and we all come from different walks of life, but we all care about not only the success of this agency and its mission, but also caring about the residents who live on SHRA properties and the neighbors. And there was a mix of both here tonight. So we hear you. I don't know that I know what the right answer is, but I think we're all expressing a commitment to want to find the right path forward in a collaborative manner with all the appropriate decision makers. And though we are mostly in advisory capacity, I think we're all committed to lifting up the voices here to ensure that the decision makers, whoever they may be, SAC PD, city, county, SHRA, we figure out the best path forward that ensures that everyone is safe. The residents, the neighbors, and that it's done in a way that's fair. As has been pointed out, there often is stigmatization around those who live in public housing. And the law does constrain our hands in terms of the ability to share certain privacy data that is simply outside of our discretion given the law. And so there is an existing public policy around respecting the privacy of residents and avoiding stigmatization. So let's be cognizant of that. So I just wanted to share some of those comments, but I think a lot of really important points were brought up tonight, and we hear you, and let's see how we can chart a path forward together to address these concerns. And so I just want to follow up a little bit on the ad hoc issue. There isn't an action item for tonight, so I want to make sure we don't end the item and then what happens now. So I don't know if Commissioner Ross or Nordstrom had any further detail, or maybe Lachelle, you have a suggestion on how we can move forward.
Yes, my suggestion, one of the things, as Mark pointed out, is our next steps is to have a convening where we really do bring together the residents, the community. We're already reaching out to the school, the police department, so that we can have a discussion about all the things that we're talking about here in a different forum that's not so restrictive, so there can be conversation and there can be dialogue about what are some of the things that we can do and how kind of all the pieces work, because I can understand how sometimes that can be a bit confusing. But at the same time, I think there is an opportunity for us to come together and to have those discussions on a more consistent basis. Then in addition to that, in terms of the role of the commission in terms of an ad hoc committee, I think that forming an ad hoc safety committee makes perfect sense. But more importantly, if some of the members from the ad hoc committee could participate in our community meetings, I think would be very beneficial. Because then you can be the conduit and reporting back to the commission the same way we've used those committees for other types of activities.
Thank you. And just sort of a procedural question along those lines. Since this was noticed as sort of a no action item, do we have the authority to appoint an ad hoc committee now? Would that have to be a separate action item?
I would recommend that it would just be a separate action item agendized for a future meeting, just so that the action itself is, above and beyond reproach.
Okay. Thank you.
But I guess one of the things, Brad, if I could interject, because we don't want to wait until the next commission meeting to have the community meeting. Would there be a problem if we have the community meeting and there are a couple of commissioners, as long as there's not a quorum, attend that meeting?
No, that would be more than fine, as long as there's not a quorum of commissioners that attend the same meeting. That could definitely be worked out.
Okay, so why don't we reach out in terms of the scheduling and get the feedback of who would like to attend those meetings, but make sure that we stay within the Brown Act.
Wonderful, thank you. And just to make sure folks understand, we can only take action on things where it was formally noticed. You all as the public have the right to know that we were going to take an action item. Since this wasn't an action item, we can't take an action, even something like appointing an ad hoc committee, a subcommittee, which we could do next week. Great. And I think we had Commissioner Hammond and then we'll come back to Commissioner.
Yes, quick question. Dr. Dozier, was this topic agendized during your report out to city council members or county supervisors in the last recent meeting?
This report, remember at our last commission meeting, we did have some speakers come and talk about safety and security. So this was put on the agenda as a result of the last commission meeting, so that we could give more detail and information and background, because we didn't have the opportunity to have that dialogue because it wasn't on the agenda.
So will this eventually be reported out to the city council members and county supervisors?
So I have an opportunity to meet with the city council members and the mayor, as well as all of the board of supervisors. And so I will be following up and briefing them.
Thank you. Just want to make sure that people are aware that, you know, that's what the process, that you're not going to be ignored. At least they will listen and hear, and we'll hold them accountable to their actions.
Thank you, Commissioner Ross.
Yes, so two things. Thank you for everyone's comments to Executive Director Dozier. That's really good. What I might recommend is that for the public meeting and even the ad hoc meeting, that maybe there would be a daytime and an evening time meeting, so that we would be able to afford availability for all folks to be able to attend. That's one. And then my next comment would be for and I like the idea of the public meeting taking place even before an ad hoc committee is formed, because there may be members of the public that want to be part of the ad hoc committee also, as well as commissioners and other stakeholders. So the next one would be, my recommendation would be that the subject of an ad hoc safety committee be agendized for our next meeting. That way, we keep the subject live and moving forward. So I would like to see it for our next agenda item, so it can be agendized and thank you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Ross. Are there any further comments or questions from commissioners?
Let me just say that
I could. Sure. Appreciate everybody for coming out. Appreciate the comments. Both on the, I've been here probably the longest of anybody here. And what I'm hearing is there's two sides to this conversation that typically happens, the interdiction, and then the how do we get here before, how do we deal with issues before that little bit of sugar that goes in that prevents things from happening. I can tell you Lachelle is not that, she's a soldier in this space. When you go to other places, I mean, our numbers are pretty good, even though they're not what one death is a death. And you can't celebrate anything when someone dies. It diminishes from all of us. But in terms of my time here, she's a soldier in this space. She fights. And so I think it's important, just like you guys are fighting, it's important for you to know that this team, this SHRA folk they hear you. They hear both the prevention people, and I know you're there, and the interdiction people who are seeing bullets come through their windows and saying, you know, it could have got my daughter. And so it's not missed on us. And so we're a citizens group, as our chair said, and we'll do our best, but it works when you guys work with us. That's when it works. Don't go away. We need you on that journey to make this happen. And just know that there are some wonderful people at both of those developments, Marina Vista and Alder Grove. They're just wonderful people. And my days at SMUD, we would do little barbecues, and they had the same hopes and dreams with their children that I had with mine. And like he said, my early days were in a project in Illinois, and so it's kind of comes full circle in a sense. But a lot of these things, a lot of these issues that we're dealing with, there's not, it's a long tail, that arc of that moral universe. It's a long stretch. It's a journey. It's not a race. It really is a journey. It's a march. And if you walk with us, then we'll walk with you. That's a guarantee.
Thank you, Commissioner Starks. Commissioner Ross.
Yeah, I just kind of want to piggyback on this. I think there's been a lot of, thank you for coming. We start off with that. There's a lot of hurt, but I want you also to know that SHRA folks work hard. They really do. They have limited resources. So what I'm encouraging you to do, we have this opportunity because there seems to be a bit of a community crisis and concern. When we're talking about forming this ad hoc committee, get involved, study, find out all the resources, give your input to try to help maximize your concerns and how to address those types of things. And then you get to learn a little bit more about what the staff here is dealing with. There's a lot of attacks on government these days, and they're citizens too, and it doesn't mean that they don't care. They do, but get on this committee, learn a little bit more about what they're doing, and see some of their struggles also as they learn more about their struggles and concerns. And I think that's going to help us move much more further in the right direction. So it's a crisis, it's a set of tragedies, but there's also an opportunity. So I want to, again, thank you as a commissioner and thank the staff for what you do, because I also, as a citizen, a little bit blinded. I didn't know that they work as hard as they did, but they do, and that's part of what we learn and what we're learning about too. So keep that in mind. Thank you, Commissioner Stark, for those comments and others. They're not bad people, so let's all work together so we can do some good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ross. Are there any final comments or questions from commissioners? Hearing none. I'm sorry, public comment is closed. And so,
just one final thing, because I heard no one said that they were back. I know, no one said that.
Email.
No.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yes.
So, no one said they were bad people, just so you can get it on the record.
thank you. So with that, just want to thank everyone for being here tonight. We look forward to continuing the conversation with you all and working together to find a solution going forward. And thank you, staff. And with that, that concludes this item. Thank you. With that, we'll jump back to item number 2. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title of the item?
2026 One-Year Action Plan Federal Programs Allocation Process, Workshop Number 1.
Thank you. We'll have a presentation from staff.
Good afternoon. My name is I'm a community development analyst here at SHRA
about this that's a part
Program
of the community.
Department.
I'm just having to sign up
And
for
today's
this right
presentation
here,
is
so
the
we can
first
also get
workshop
organized
for both the
ourselves.
City and County of Sacramento 2026 Annual Action Plan.
Oh, one moment. If I could please ask folks, if you're going to have a conversation, please step outside so we can hear the presentation from staff. Thank you.
The purpose of today's workshop will be to provide information on the federal programs as well as an opportunity to solicit project ideas and feedback, and there will be a few opportunities over the next few months for you to provide input. I will start with providing a brief overview of the requirements for the federal programs, and then I will share with you the estimated 2026 city and county entitlements, examples of past projects, and lastly, I will discuss the process for the schedule moving forward. All right. Oh, I got clicker. Perfect. There we go. All right. So federal grant requirements. So as a high-level overview, SHRA has been delegated authority by the City Council and the Board of Supervisors to administer the formula program grants received from HUD on their behalf. These grants include Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, Home Investment Partnership Program, or HOME, Emergency Solutions Block Grant, known as ESG, and the Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS, also known as HOPWA. These are all entitlement grants, meaning that HUD uses a formula to determine how much we will get each year in each jurisdiction. Further on, I will describe what type of activities each of these programs cover. As part of accepting these grants, there are steps that HUD requires us to take. First, HUD requires grant recipients to complete a consolidated plan, which is a 5-year plan that identifies the community needs and establishes a long-term strategy to meet those needs. The current consolidated plan covers the years 2025 to 2029 and was approved by the city and county in October of 2024. In addition to the consolidated plan, HUD also requires that we prepare an annual action plan, which identifies specific activities and projects that will be undertaken to meet the objectives identified in the consolidated plan. The next few slides will cover how we determine which projects or activities to fund in the annual action plan, primarily focusing on the CDBG funds. So first, the consolidated plan identifies objectives for the best use of these grant funds, and we want to make sure that the activities we fund align with these objectives. This slide shows the objectives that were developed in the last consolidated plan for CDBG. Overall, they are to help create ladders of opportunity for our low and moderate income residents through 3 different avenues: affordable housing, public facilities and infrastructure, as well as public services. You will see these 3 different categories reflected in how CDBG funds are distributed in our action plan. In addition to meeting the consolidated plan objectives, we must also ensure that projects meet a HUD national objective. The vast majority of CDBG expenditures must meet the national objective of being an activity that benefits low and moderate income persons, which can be accomplished in 3 ways. First, it can be an activity that benefits an area of low or moderate income, which means it needs to be in a location that is primarily residential, and at least 51% of the residents in that area need to be at low and moderate income. Second, we can also provide funding directly to low and moderate income clientele, which is individuals or households at or below 80% of area median income. An example in this category we use to fund shelters and Meals on Wheels. Lastly, we can also fund low and moderate income housing, which helps provide housing to individuals or households below 80% of area median income. This is usually provided in the form of gap financing for an affordable housing rehab project. So in addition to meeting a national objective, CDBG projects must be an eligible activity. The broad categories of major eligible activities include public facilities and infrastructure, so that could be a community center, a playground, ADA curb ramps, pedestrian improvements, streetlights, community gardens, the list goes on and on. Public services, so notable ones that we operate are Meals on Wheels and shelter operations. It could be acquisition. So for example, if we were to acquire a property that was being used for a public facility or housing development. Clearance and remediation activities, which would include, if an affordable housing site had some kind of toxic environmental contaminant, we could pay to have that cleared up. Home ownership assistance, planning and administration, which includes staff costs, and environmental studies are all eligible under CDBG. I also want to highlight some major ineligible activities, so areas that we definitely or generally cannot fund with CDBG. There we go. General government buildings and expenses are not eligible, so we would not be able to renovate City Hall with CDBG. Operating and maintenance expenses, so like custodial, trash pickup, fixing potholes, things like that, generally not going to be eligible for CDBG. Purchasing construction equipment and furnishings, new housing construction is generally ineligible. Political and religious activities are always ineligible. And generally, regional parks and facilities are ineligible because the service area is too big, so it generally doesn't work. Before I move on to the next few slides, I also want to note that there are other things we have to take into consideration when evaluating projects to include in the action plan. One of the more important factors is project readiness. We have an obligation to HUD to spend funds in a timely manner, so it's important to select projects that are ready to go and can expend funds quickly. We usually like to see funds spent down between 12 and 18 months, if possible, and sooner if possible. So next I'll highlight the 2026 estimated funding entitlements for the city, and after that I will move on to the county. We typically receive the final approved amount from HUD in April of each year. So for planning purposes, we base this year's estimated entitlement on what was approved in the previous year, anticipating no change in entitlement. As you may know, Congress has not yet approved a 2025 budget, so our 2025 allocation amount may be announced later than usual. We have based our 2026 estimates on the already received 2024 allocations. For 2026 in the city, we're estimating that we will get about $4.5 million for CDBG. We've already gone over CDBG eligibility. For home, we expect about $2.2 million. Home is usually used to acquire and construct multifamily affordable housing projects. For ESG, we're estimating about $400,000, and those funds will go to help people who are homeless, for example, through rental assistance, as well as operations for emergency shelters. And HOPWA, we're expecting about $2 million. HOPWA is used for either services or physical units as part of multifamily projects for people with HIV and AIDS. So overall, we're estimating we will receive about $9.1 million for all of these federal programs in the city. As for allocations, so for CDBG, the annual entitlement is divided up among several categories. This table shows an estimate of how these funds may be utilized. For estimating purposes, we will allocate the maximum allowable for both public services and administration, and then work backwards from there to determine how much is available for other categories. We are allowed to allocate a maximum of 15% to public services, so that'll be about $675,000. Usually we use these funds for both homeless activities and Meals on Wheels. A maximum of 20% to planning and admin, so this will be about $900,000. That's used to pay for staffing and admin fees, as well as the consultant services for preparing things like our con plan. $980,000 goes to the HUD loan repayment, which we use the Section 108 loan for the infrastructure improvements at Mirasol Village. That amount might be subject to change based on an adjustable interest rate, so if it were to go up, we might have to reassess in some of these other areas. And then about $1 million will go to infrastructure and public facilities improvements. So that's really the main area where we're seeking input from you guys in the community to see what projects we should be working on. And a little over $845,000 will go to affordable housing. Those funds go towards multifamily rehabilitation and home repairs for low and moderate income homeowners. And the last category is capital reserve, which is a contingency bucket that we reserved $100,000 for this year. So an example of the types of infrastructure projects we typically fund with CDBG, these are what we funded in the 2025 City Action Plan, including 5 parks projects and 1 site remediation activity. So moving on to the county, this table shows what the estimated 2026 county entitlements for CDBG, home, and ESG are. We're estimating about $9.3 million in total entitlement funds. And just so you're aware, the HOPWA allocation that you saw on the city slide does not appear here because it comes through the city and is distributed to the various counties, including Sacramento County, but it comes to the city specifically. So, county allocations. This table shows an estimate of how the CDBG allocation will be divided up among the program categories in 2026 for the county. Again, we have a cap of 20% for planning and admin and 15% for public services, and the rest is divided up among infrastructure, housing, and capital reserve. You'll also see that the agreement cities are on here, which are non-entitlement jurisdictions within the urban county of Sacramento that we receive and administer funds for. Here are some examples of 2025 county projects that we used CDBG for. It included street improvement projects, sidewalk improvements, parks improvements, as well as additional funds to cover the ADA restroom facility at Walnut Grove. So moving on to the final few slides that will cover the outline for the process moving forward to identify projects for the 2026 Annual Action Plan. In January, SHRA initiates the process with the city and county staff to start thinking about the projects for the next year, so we've already initiated that. In February through March, we hold our first public action plan workshops at the Commission, the City Council, and Board of Supervisors, so this is an example of that workshop. February through May, we meet with the city and county staff to identify projects and confirm if they are eligible. And then in June, we should have a draft list of projects for 2026 identified, and we head back to the Commission, City Council, and Board of Supervisors with the draft list. And then June through August, we continue to meet with the city and county staff as needed to finalize the projects, and at that point, we should have a budget complete for the year. And then August through October, we will be finalizing the action plan. We'll come back to the Commission, City Council, and Board in October for approval of the 2 plans, and then we submit to HUD on November 15th. And with that, this concludes my presentation. Once again, we welcome any input that you or your constituents have for action plan project ideas, either now or you can reach out to us anytime before the next commission workshop that is currently planned for June 4th. Thank you for your time, and I'm open to any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Nunley?
Yes, especially since you mentioned the Meals on Wheels, and I also sit on the governing board for the Area on Aging for, Agency on Aging for Area 4. That's what it is. And when the announcement came out for freezing all federal funds, it created an enormous amount and still has a lot of concern going with regard to that funding. And especially for seniors, when you said Meals on Wheels, that program was almost stopped dead in its tracks. And for a lot of the programs for seniors, they were just about shut down. It became frantic of, we're not on the list. Oops, yes, we are on the list. What do we do? And thank God it was stopped by a judge. But given that, there still are concerns, and in particular, anything with the terms DEI in any of the grants or programs or anything like that. Has that already started to be anticipated and where this is going to go?
I can jump in on that. You are correct. We had the same kind of crazy day when we were locked out of all of our systems during that time frame. We were trying to figure out exactly how long it would last. Would we be able to get back in? But after the judge's order, our systems did open back up, and so we were able to start drawing down money. Our biggest concern is that our checks to landlords had to go out within a few days. That was $17 million was our monthly just regular payroll for our Section 8 landlords. And we did receive the money, did come to us from Treasury so that we could meet our obligations there. This particular budget that we're putting together is our best guess. We absolutely don't know what we're going to receive from HUD. We hope, our best hope is if it could stay with the same level that we have, without any reductions. But as you recall, when we came forward with our budget, we were very conservative because of all the uncertainties, and we continue to maintain that same level of conservatism as we move forward and until we know what's going to happen. The biggest thing that's now looming with us is the fact that we're under a continuing resolution through March. And if we don't get that extended, then the government will shut down. I mean, that's just the way that it works. If you do not have a continuing resolution or you settle on a budget, based on what we're hearing, it's very likely that we may have a continuing resolution throughout the rest of this year. There may not be a resolution on a budget, which still means that, you know, as we move forward with this particular funding, we have to be pretty conservative and understand that we may have to make some severe adjustments if the funding doesn't come in at the level that we are anticipating. That's kind of the lay of the land of where we are now.
And then what about the DEI issue?
Yeah. Oh yeah, those programs are eliminated, and I think more specifically with this is the affirmatively furthering fair housing component, and maybe Christine, you can talk to that because it's dead in the water.
Yeah, correct. We've often had a plan for, as Michelle said, affirmative furthering fair housing. We will not be doing that for the federal government in the near future. The state of California does have its own fair housing and affirmatively furthering thing. Fair housing that we will still adhere to, but I think the whole fair housing office for HUD has been closed, that's my understanding. So again, this is our best guess. I mean, these are our programs that we will still, you know, look to fund, but like Meals on Wheels, we'll have to wait and see. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from commissioners?
Yeah. Yeah, mine.
Commissioner Russ and the commissioners.
I think mine will be relatively quick, but when we're talking about another approach to getting resources to where they're needed from a data-driven approach, that public health person mentioned social determinants of health. It really is a way that you are addressing statistically the needs. And there may happen to be high levels of persons of color, there may not be. We typically know who our homeless individuals are, and that usually covers quite a bit. So I don't know, this is my own tinkering thoughts over the past few weeks. I would, just as a recommendation, as you're adjusting, I'm getting ready to go to a data conference next week, to be looking at it from a drivers of health approach. If we look at it that way, it doesn't matter what color you are. Statistically, the data will tell us where to put those resources, and folks may likely not be able to speak against that because it's just a data-driven approach. The second thing I wanted to mention, I brought this up maybe 2 years ago, in light of the discussion that was here, on the 15% that comes through CDBG. So I know in Meals on Wheels it's super important. So I don't want to recommend taking any money from there, but in other municipalities that I've been at, Southern California, Central Valley and so forth, the 15% was available for various nonprofits to compete for funding and put in proposals. My thought would be, is there any room that our public housing nonprofits and so forth could be able to, if we're looking at this 15%, to get some of that funding? It would be good for public visibility, public relations, those types of things, and maybe fund some resources that may be needed for some activities there that maybe can't be found. When I have been a submitter of grants several times. That was my first fundraising grant writing experience, was writing CDBG grants. I know we have an interesting approach to it, or another approach. Maybe this is a way that some of their concerns may be able to be addressed if they apply. That's all.
I'm trying to.
Yeah, I get it. Looks like we're skipping. I mean, we can certainly take that into consideration. I will say that traditionally, both the Board of Supervisors and City Council have always sort of directed a lot of the public service dollars to the shelters and to Meals on Wheels. That said, it's something we can definitely take into consideration. That's why we're here tonight, to ask for your input, so we appreciate that.
Thank you.
And then also the Meals on Wheels program does leverage, it's the city, the county, and it's the other cities all participate and contribute into kind of the one big pot for Meals on Wheels. That is run by Asian Resources, are they still the ones running? Yeah, Asian Resources. And they do a fabulous job, and the people who benefit greatly are our residents. Our housing residents are the ones, our seniors depend on Meals on Wheels for their daily nutrition. And so a lot of those drop-offs are at our developments.
Yeah, I guess my only thought on that is, year by year, it seems like it's already said that's what it's gonna go to. And so I think maybe there's some other, there may be some creative adjustments that can be made in other areas to maybe allocate. I know it's 15%, but maybe other resources can be used, to continue Meals on Wheels at the level that it's at. But my concern is, I do think we have a little bit of an acute crisis here that they're saying, give us some attention. So, and attention means funding. So, thank you. Yeah, I know you got it. So, yeah, thank you.
Our issue, there's just not a lot of money to go around.
That's right.
Yeah. And so much need.
Commissioner Starks.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I see it as a real crisis. And I was going to ask, just as a point of order, what percentage of our budget is federal and what percentage not federal?
Katie is back there. 80%, 80 some odd, 80.
Yes, it's
80.
I think it's
the
great.
Vast majority.
Yeah. Vast majority is federal funded?
That is correct.
And with that, is it prudent for us, or at least that 20% of us, to have some kind of contingent, some kind of ready, just on the sheer chance that 80% doesn't happen? Are we entertained? We're in new ground right now, nationally. And, it's just like COVID, we weren't prepared. Not just this group, but, and I guess what I'm asking, given that there's an 80-20, do we somewhere back very quietly have some kind of contingency, whether it's a communication contingency or whether it's a budget contingency, that just in case some of our core programming gets shut down? I would hate to, I would hate to be there, but I think it's prudent that we don't just move forward. I hear, this is an aside, I hear people entertaining things, and it just sticks in my craw. And this, we're all citizens here, I'll say what I want. That DEI is reasonable, and we have some person who says it's not reasonable. And we're all responding to that. We're all responding to that unreasonable. And we find ourselves at a time even changing our core beliefs. And I'm just kind of, without trying to get in trouble here, I'm trying to say, have you guys, at some point, 20% of you, 20% of the bandwidth, does that consider a kind of contingent plan? Are you thinking about some kind of what if?
So are you asking the question if, of the 80%, if there is some type of, let's say, cut, then what is our backup plan?
Well, yes. Because we're moving here.
We cannot provide services. There isn't any other alternative. We have no reserves. The reserves that we had are gone. And like many other housing authorities, those were swept. Remember when we talked about shortfall in our HCD program? Yeah, there was no backup plan if we did not get the $17 million. We didn't have money to send to our landlords. And it's just the unfortunate reality that there isn't a margin that we're operating on. The 20% that we're talking about is, they're not just funds that we can use for anything. So we couldn't take the 20% and use it for, even if we wanted to, because they're for specific other types of programs that we run. So that it's the reality of what we're dealing with. If there is let's say we get to a point where there's a government shutdown and sequestration occurs, we start running scenarios of who we have to take off this program. I mean, that's how dire the situation is. And it's where we and many other housing authorities are very alarmed by what we're seeing, and understand that there isn't a way for us to plan for that large of a
Do your landlords know? Do your tenants know? Is there a plan that, and is this appropriate given that he's talking budget, and that's where this is coming?
It's the budget that would be impacted.
Exactly,
yeah.
And that's where it's coming from. I hope I'm not shooting from left field here.
Oh, no, we understand, and that's why we're saying this is our best guess of a scenario of funding. But let's just say, for instance, or that you were talking about, CDBG, ESG, HOPWA, and HOME, Christine and I, we talked about it. HOME probably is the one that is most in jeopardy of being cut or eliminated, So those are the types of, realities that we are facing.
It's unfortunate, and this is my last comment, it's unfortunate that we have to deal sometimes with the mess. Mm-hmm. We have to make sense out of no sense. Okay, and I guess I'm fired up from having already in my short tenure here, hearing issues of safety when we've done that, heard that, discussed it, all that stuff, and yet we don't have we find ourselves having to rehash both issues, one of safety, one of budget. And we get to the point where, you know, is it us? Is there something more that we can do to articulate where we've been, the breadcrumbs behind us and what we've done? Is there, so that at the end of the day, we're not left holding the stupid, you didn't do the good work bag. We don't want to hold that. And I think it's so important, you know. On one hand, I want to say, hey, y'all, we talked about this before. I totally get where we talked about this. We've been there, we've studied in deep. And on the other hand, I'm like, okay, there's a political thing jumping off and it may impact us like COVID impacted us. And what can we do to kind of pre-guess, pre-strategize a budget, a doomsday budget versus where we are right now, everything is going sweet and no problem's gonna happen. So it's just me venting, so please forgive me for that. I'm just, you know, you guys are in a very tough spot.
Yeah, in the case of these programs that Grant reviewed for you, if we do not receive the amount of funds we believe we were going to receive in 2025, we'll immediately contact all the providers of those programs and those projects and tell them to immediately stop working on them.
Wow.
That's what we'll do.
And the impact will go to some of your landlords will be.
Yeah, it'll be, I mean, the project could be halfway finished, the meals will stop being served, you know, things like that.
Impacts them.
But that is, our agreements are written that way, and they have been for 40 years for some of these programs, that if we do not receive the funds from the federal government, we cannot pass those funds on to you. We receive, how much do we receive for capital fund? About
Total?
Yeah.
About 7 million total?
Yeah,
Between city and county.
Between the city and the county, you know, $7 million, and we have how many units? Close to
over
2,000 units that we have to do all of the capital repair. These were built in 1940. You know, this is why we did Marisol Village, was that at some point you just can't keep repairing it, but yet you don't receive enough money from the federal government. It has been unfunded for decades. And we do the best that we can with the resources that we have, but we end up on Marisol leveraging so many other resources, not just federal, state, grants, everything, just to pull that off. So while I understand, and it's the frustration that we all live with day in and day out, we would love to have just a robust array of services and programs and all these things, but we're operating things on a shoestring budget that even is in jeopardy now. So I just want to make sure that it's very real to people to understand that there isn't a backup plan because the number is too big and we have no contingency because those have all been swept.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sturgis. Commissioner Ross?
Yeah, one very quick comment. So that being said, like that crowd, which was in huge numbers here, given what Commissioner Starks was saying, a thought might be, take it to the people, at least some of the people that are showing up, and say, these are what our limitations are, and this is what we can offer. You know, here's what you're not taking advantage of. You know, there's no, you know, I met with learning about more of the FSS programming and so forth. I mean, people want jobs. We got them. Do you want to sign up for it? I mean, I think it's very prudent for us as an organization to take some of that information to the people. And I'm just, I mean, maybe you feel you're doing a great job with that. Some people don't know because they don't know. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't, but maybe it's time just to be honest and say, here's what we can do, here's what we can't do, here's what's available, and let's maximize what we can. That's a public relations deal, and that'll take some effort, but it may be helpful to the cause. So that's all.
Okay, are there any further comments or questions from commissioners? Well, I'll just say thank you for the presentation and important discussion, and I know it's been on my mind as well, given the current federal situation. And I don't know that there's more to be said other than I will just say on the AFFH point, that is something that does worry me. Some of our partners with fair housing organizations are terrified because the vast majority of their funding comes from the federal government, and so, you know, I am kind of curious, you know, from a budgetary standpoint, a question of like, what's our contingency plan? But I do wonder, are there any other requirements that, you know, if we don't have to do a analysis of fair housing or impediments to fair housing, I just want to make sure that if there are any positive things that federal law currently requires us to do, for example, in the fair housing space, are there good practices that we should still keep doing even if the law doesn't mandate us to do it? So I don't know how much that really impacts us, but just thinking even from a policy standpoint or best practices, you know, and again, was just thinking about that with AFFH being mentioned. Are there any other things that we're thinking about that aren't merely a budget question, but other sort of policies that may be lost or practices that may no longer be required, but that we might not want to let be thrown into the trash?
Yeah, to reiterate, here in California, the Housing and Community Development Department has basically passed on the same obligations that the federal government had to entities like ourselves, and we at the city level and the county level adopted the national policy, the national AI that we were doing, you know, analysis of, you know, impediments to fair housing and things like that. So those programs that we were already doing for the federal level will now do for the state. So they're not lost. What I'm saying is they're still an oversight entity. We're still bound by them. We're still going to make sure they're being implemented.
Okay.
But I can't say that about every state, but that's the state of California.
Okay. Well, just wanting to keep that in mind for any other programs that may be on the chopping block with this administration. But yeah, so even beyond just a money standpoint. But if the money's not there, then I guess the rest kind of doesn't matter. But all right, if there are no,
Just one last thing, because it's a small nuance, but where if there was the requirement, which is what the agency on aging is looking at, that you have to reword certain programs in order to receive the federal funding. And that's what they were looking at, that they actually had to go through and start rewording things just to receive that. Is that on the radar or what's going on?
Not yet. To the best of my ability for these programs, the grant was reviewing.
All right, thank you.
Well, along those lines, do we have anything that could be considered DEI that, in terms of seeking our federal money, that Trump signs another executive order saying you can't get money if it even mentioned, you know, like, is there anything that we do that?
Well, the agency always has been, you know, very much proactive regarding training around DEI. We look at that in terms of just the overall composition and makeup of our staff. You see that, you know, we're probably the most diverse staff, you know, between the city and county is at SHRA. So we're always tracking and we're being very methodical and thoughtful to have a staff that reflects the community that we serve. However, they are very, very serious about any type of training that is labeled DEI, which we have definitely had that here at the agency. And so we have to now step back and evaluate how we talk about equity without incurring the type of censorship, I guess, is a way to put it.
Because we are a federal group, a federal agency.
And they,
Yes.
and they control the federal funds.
Okay. All right.
I mean, along those lines, and appreciate that clarification, I guess I would just say, because I think for us, you know, we've seen that there are some folks who receive federal funds at the state level who, I think, like, the day after he took those initial actions, immediately took down diversity or DEI stuff from their website. And it's like, why are you immediately reacting that way just out of caution, which is understandable from like that standpoint of, you know, being extra cautious. But I would really hope that we don't do that if it's not required, just even out of, you know, we should live our values as Californians, as Sacramentans, and I think we all appreciate the agency's commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and also the city and the county. I mean, certainly the city, I mean, I assume the county too, have at least stated a commitment towards that. So I think if that's under threat, then, you know, I would want to make sure that we're doing what the law requires us to do, to folding before there's even, you know, a requirement to do so. And also looking to the governing boards, you know, our council members, our mayor, who maybe can fight, push back, because I think living those values is really important, especially given those who benefit from public housing, from Section 8. It looks like Sacramento, and some people may call that DEI, but I call that like community. So appreciate your continued commitment, and let's not give up if we don't have to.
We are very committed to community.
All right. If there are no further comments or questions, then thank you, and we will move on to our next item. Right. No, or no. So we do need to appoint. That'll be the next item, the appointment of commissioners to the subcommittee. But let's go through item 4. Yeah. So we're gonna move on to item number 4. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title of item 4?
FY22 Public Housing Assessment System Scores Update.
Thank you. So there will be an update from the chair of the task force, and I will turn it over to Commissioner.
All right, thank you. So this is a report out on our last meeting on January 15th. SHRA staff gave us a review of the current public housing assessment system and the changes proposed by the scoring system. However, the one thing that these changes still have not been finalized by HUD, so it's still a little bit of a challenge because you have the scoring system that they want us to meet, but the scoring system isn't finalized. And yet we're supposed to meet it, so that gets a little challenging. They also reviewed the results of the Public Housing Authority Recovery and Sustainability Report. This report was based on the HUD visit in August 2024, which included interviews with several of the commissioners. The PHARS report recommended a subcommittee of the commissioners be formed to focus on detailed PHAS-related items such as occupancy data, rent collection, inspection scores, and a few other items. Following this recommendation from HUD, staff indicated that the work of the task force had concluded, and at the February 19th meeting, the PHAS subcommittee of the commission be established. And the first subcommittee meeting will be held on March 5th at 3:30, just before our meeting. And so at this point, we can segue right into the next item, which is appointment of commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Nunley. Just before we move on to item 5, are there any questions or comments from the commissioners on this update? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, is there any public comment on this item?
No.
Thank you. All right, so now we will move on to item 5, which is the appointment. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title of item 5?
Appointment of commissioners to the Public Housing Assessment System Subcommittee.
So there is no staff presentation. 4 commissioners are needed to serve on the Public Housing Assessment System Subcommittee to provide guidance to SHRA staff on the various indicators to improve the scores. The subcommittee will meet no more than once a month before the commission meetings, as mentioned by Commissioner Nunley, and the duration of the committee will be at least until the end of the year. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners on that? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments on this item?
There are not.
Wonderful. So at this point, I will ask if there are volunteers from the commission to serve on the subcommittee. And I believe the current members of the subcommittee have been Commissioner Nunley chairing the subcommittee, Commissioners Amanfor, Starks, and who? Oh, and Commissioner Jefferson. Thank you. So let me first start by asking, would you all like to continue to serve on the subcommittee, or are there other commissioners who are interested?
Yeah, I will probably not serve and maybe give, I think Commissioner Ross may be interested in it.
Okay, so Commissioner Nunley is interested to not continue, and it sounds like Commissioner Ross may be interested.
Maybe. I'm interested in this particular committee. Is that similar?
Are you referring to the ad hoc with regard to safety?
Yeah.
Okay.
Similar.
Yeah, those are separate.
Yeah, I'm more interested.
Okay, so
He's confusing.
yeah, so Commissioner Ross was referring to the ad hoc subcommittee that we talked about with regard to the safety issues, which will be more formally appointed next meeting.
Yeah.
So okay, so we can hold off on that. So let me just first check with the existing members of the subcommittee, other than Commissioner Nunley. Would the 3 of you like to continue?
Yeah.
No? Okay, Commissioner Jefferson will continue.
I don't mind staying. I'll stay.
Okay, so Commissioners Amanfor and Starks will continue, so we have 2 who won't.
And I'm sorry, Vice Chair, but did you say how long was the appointment to this committee? How long is the duration of the?
So the duration will be at least until the end of the year.
Oh, just until the end of the year. Oh, okay. Yeah. And it's always before this meeting?
Yes.
It's the same day and just an hour earlier, different
Yes.
location? Okay, I'd be interested in all.
Okay, so we have Commissioner Nordstrom, and then Commissioner Wu, and Commissioner Wu is also interested. Okay, so we have 4. Anyone else? All right, so it sounds like we have consensus. So do we have a motion to create the PHAS subcommittee with those 4 commissioners?
So moved. Second.
I think that was a motion, Commissioner Stark, second by Commissioner Nunley. Is there any debate or discussion on this motion? Hearing none. If there are no objections, we will pass the motion. Are there any objections? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, that concludes item 5. Thank you. We will now move on to the Executive Director's report.
Okay, just very quickly. I'm not sure if any of the commissioners were able to make it out to our big celebration today of the groundbreaking of the light rail station, even though they've been working on it for a little while. Who had a chance to do that today. It was very well attended by council members who started the process over a decade ago. All showed up to really cheer this kind of huge milestone of getting that light rail station in place for Marisol Village. So just really want to continue to thank the commission for, just standing by us as we continue to move forward and do these really, really big, tough projects. Then also our next meeting is planned for March 5th, so make sure that's on your calendar. But the next event we have coming up, so if you didn't come out in the rain today, you can come out on Saturday. We have our Habitat for Humanity Oak Park home dedication. So one of the vacant lots where we built homes through Habitat is going to have a home dedication. And if you've never gone to a Habitat, I just really encourage you. It's just so heartwarming. They have a whole ceremony and things that they do with the family who's moving into their new home. So that's going to be this Saturday, February 22nd from 10 to 12 at 2627 36th Street in Sacramento. So if you have time, that'd be great if you can stop by.
Wonderful, thank you. With that, we'll move on to Commission Chair report. I'm not the chair, so I have nothing to report, but I will just say thank you all for bearing with me chairing this meeting. It was quite a trial by fire.
I know you got a tough one.
I know. But it was fun though. But, thank you all. So we'll move on now to commission member reports. Any commissioners have anything to report? All right, with that, so there being no other business, then without objection, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.